For 3 centuries, the Romanov family ruled the Russian Empire with absolute authority and unimaginable wealth. By 1914, Tsar Nicholas II commanded 1/10 of the Earth's surface. 4 years later, a revolution had stripped them of everything. On the night of July 17, 1918, Bolshevik guards woke the Tsar, his wife Alexandra, and their 5 children, escorting them to a bleak cellar in Yekaterinburg under the pretense of moving them to a safe house. Instead of a transport detail, a squad of armed men led by Yakov Yurovsky filed into the small basement. Yurovsky read a brief execution order, drew his revolver, and shot the Tsar at point-blank range. What followed was 20 minutes of severe disorganization. In the confined, smoke-filled space, the executioners fired wildly. The room became so thick with gun smoke they could barely see their targets, and the guards eventually resorted to using bayonets to finish the grim task, leaving the walls scarred with bullet holes. The sheer incompetence of the guards and chaotic nature of the massacre laid the physical groundwork for the 20th century's most enduring royal mystery. The confusion in that basement was amplified by a secret the Romanov daughters carried with them. Before arriving in Yekaterinburg, Tsarina Alexandra had instructed her daughters to sew the family's diamonds and precious jewels tightly into the linings of their corsets. As this cross-section illustrates, these densely packed gemstones acted as a crude layer of armor. When the initial volley struck, many of the bullets actually ricocheted off the diamonds, leaving several girls alive and moving after the first wave of the attack. The executioners eventually completed their orders, but the political cover-up began immediately. To avoid international outrage, the new Soviet government proudly announced the execution of the Tsar, but deliberately lied to the public, claiming his wife and children were being held safely in an undisclosed location. Meanwhile, Yurovsky's men were scrambling to hide the evidence. After a disastrous transport attempt, they mutilated the remains with sulfuric acid and fire, hastily burying them in a shallow pit in the Siberian forest. A botched execution where bullets bounced off victims, combined with a state-sponsored information vacuum, created perfect conditions for a survival myth to take root. In 1920, a mysterious, traumatized young woman attempted to take her own life by jumping into a canal in Berlin. After being rescued and placed in a mental asylum, she eventually made a stunning claim. She was the youngest Romanov daughter, Grand Duchess Anastasia. She became known as Anna Anderson, and she bore a striking physical resemblance to the missing princess. She possessed scars consistent with bayonet wounds and recalled intimate details of imperial court life that astonished Russian exiles. Her timing was impeccable. Following the endless bloodshed of World War I and the Russian Revolution, a deeply traumatized global public desperately wanted a glimmer of optimism. They needed to believe that a symbol of innocent youth could outsmart the Bolshevik firing squad. Anna Anderson provided the fairy tale ending the world craved. Her arrival transformed a localized cover-up in Siberia into a global phenomenon, successfully hijacking the historical record for over 6 decades. The rumors surrounding Anastasia outlasted the Soviet Union itself. In 1991, with the communist regime dissolved, archaeologists finally located and exhumed the rumored Romanov mass grave outside Yekaterinburg. But as forensic scientists meticulously cataloged the bones, they discovered a glaring deficit. 11 people were murdered in the cellar that night. The pit only contained the skeletons of 9. Looking at this visual tally, 9 sets of remains were positively identified as the Tsar, the Tsarina, 3 daughters, and 4 servants. The 2 empty silhouettes represent the missing bodies, the young heir Alexei and one of his sisters. To the public and to Anderson's supporters, this missing physical evidence was the ultimate validation. It pushed the myth of Anastasia's escape to its absolute peak of credibility. The turning point arrived in 1994, a decade after Anna Anderson's death. Forensic scientists secured a preserved medical tissue sample that had been removed from Anderson during an operation years earlier, applying modern mitochondrial DNA testing to the case. Because mitochondrial DNA is passed down intact through the maternal bloodline, investigators needed a genetic sample from a known living relative of Tsarina Alexandra. They found it in Britain's Prince Philip. The laboratory results were definitive. The DNA did not match the royal lineage. Anderson was officially identified as Franziska Shanskowska, a Polish factory worker with a history of mental illness who had gone missing in 1920. Cold, objective genetic data delivered the first fatal blow to the century-old mystery, permanently stripping away the romantic illusion of the royal impostor. The final physical evidence surfaced in 2007. Local researchers searching the Siberian forest discovered a second, much smaller fire pit just 70 meters away from the original mass grave. Inside were a handful of bone fragments and teeth. They were severely degraded, burned, and shattered. Scientists had to use a highly advanced amplification process just to recover faint traces of surviving genetic material. When examining this sequencing film, the genetic markers were unmistakable. The fragments were a conclusive, direct match to the Tsar and Tsarina. The final two victims were Alexei and the last missing Romanov daughter. This discovery closed the case permanently. There was no royal runaway. On July 17, 1918, 17-year-old Anastasia was brutally murdered alongside her entire family. The myth of her escape offered a comforting distraction from a dark, violent reality. But by using science to establish the brutal truth, we stop honoring an impostor's illusion, and the real Romanov family is finally granted the historical peace and dignity they were denied in life.